We all have a story to tell. Some are just beginning, others have been unfolding for years. Welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. Each week, I sit down with guests to explore their journeys into spirit, the challenges, awakenings, and the moments that shaped who they are today. So take a breath, settle in, and join me as we uncover the stories that lead us back to our true selves. All right, welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Chimbert, and today we have a special guest, Jerry Sargeant, who is the founder of Star Magic. I don't know if I should say creator, but at least founder. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. It's an honor and a pleasure, brother.
So I guess before we kind of get started with your story and how you found Star Magic, for those who don't know, could you just give a brief overview of what Star Magic is?
Yeah, it's a healing frequency, and we utilize it in all facets of life. So someone can come to us with physical injuries, physical illnesses, ailments, disease. Someone might come with mental issues, instability, brain problems. They may have an issue with their relationship. It could be business performance that they're looking to accelerate and enhance. You can use Star Magic everywhere, because ultimately what we're doing is we're tuning people into their kind of baseline blueprint or their baseline kind of energetic frequency. Once a human being kind of enters that state and that space, they put out a very specific signal. And then that signal, it moves in coherence, it moves in alignment, or it enables the human being to move in alignment or be in alignment. And then from that space of coherence, alignment, and wholeness, everything starts to work. Every facet of reality, because the universe is a mirror of us, right? So everything going correctly internally, then everything outside works. So Star Magic is a tool, a frequency, a geometrical, mathematical frequency that we use to shift people internally, which changes their life on the outside.
Nice. Yeah. And for context of my own training, like I've done Reiki, quantum Reiki, laser Reiki. Then I got initiated with the Quiro down in Peru, have a Mesa. I've worked with a shaman in South Africa for like learning how to do entity extractions. And, I'm watching your training videos and like you're literally healing somebody's spine of scoliosis within like 20 minutes. Like it, and that's because you were explaining it to people. Like I've never seen such physical change happen to people. Most healing modalities, there is clearing the emotion and sometimes the physical pain will go away and change, but I've never actually seen somebody's spine just, readjust itself. It's truly amazing. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's one of our favorite parts of the training. I don't want anyone to have a bent spine, but it's always good at a training, or for someone to come with a bent spine, because we have a guinea pig to ask one of the students to come up and go through the process and fix it. And when people see that in real time, without even touching anybody, people are like, whoa, you can't deny it, because it's physical, it's real. You actually just witnessed it. So it gives people a lot of confidence that this stuff can be done. And then once you get them doing it themselves, then they just open up to everything. Because yeah, I mean, sometimes these people go to chiropractors, and you know, some people have had surgery, and they just can't fix the spine. But we're doing it in, like, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, like boom, like, and not just a twisted spine, but bent and twisted.
Mhm.
So like hyposcoliosis, like a corkscrew spine. Crazy pain people are in, and to see it shift, it blows my mind every time.
And it was incredible to watch. I need to actually try it, but it was impressive. I've never seen that done before, and that's what when I first heard about Star Magic, I was like, yeah, yeah, okay. But then a buddy of mine actually showed me some stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me look more into this. And it just seems to take things to a whole different level. And not that there's anything wrong with the other modalities, but it's almost like you're mixing everything, and it's just more playful. It's just kind of like there is structure to a point, but it's also individualized based upon the person who's facilitating the work. It's just more playful in manner and it's more individualized where they can just kind of make it up as they go to make it work, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because like if you work inside some kind of structure or system, which most healing modalities are, you're limited to what is in that system. People don't step outside of it. So what we do is we give people a basic framework and then show them how to play, within and without that framework, and help them understand that the outside of the framework and the inside of the framework, there's no difference. So
Hmm.
you have this kind of basic framework, but then, like you said, you play. And the best facilitators are children because they haven't got those kind of like preconceived ideas of how something should be or how something shouldn't be. So they literally just explore it and they're curious and they're just having so much fun with it. And that playful energy comes in. It's such a beautiful frequency. And it just helps them accomplish, what some people would call miracles or impossible, but they change things in people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the youngest child you've seen like work this?
About 3 years ago, I was in San Francisco and we had a young lad, and his name was Kahoy, and he was from Kauai, and he came with his mum, and we were doing a training, as a facilitator training level one, and I said like, it was another lady with a bent spine actually. She had kyphoscoliosis, and I said, is there anyone in the audience that would like to help me, correct this lady's spine? And out of all the people in the audience, just this one young lad put his hand up. No one else wanted to give it a go. So we came up to the front and I was lying down on the floor, sort of like with my head on my hand, sort of like just observing him and talking him through the process. And another one of our facilitators was drawing on the board what he was seeing. He was there with his eyes closed, and the lady was in front of him and she was crying because it was quite painful. And he's going into this really deep galactic reality. And it turned out that the soul of the woman he was healing and his soul had some kind of relationship in a galactic reality. Probably why he was the only one that put his hand up. But he's going through this process and he went under. He just like sort of collapsed. And I quickly got up and I caught him in my hands like this. And he's sort of like journeying because he went really, really deep in the process. And I'm just sort of I'm talking to him, and he comes around. I stand him back up, and he just carries on working. It was the most incredible thing. And in about 40 minutes, he straightened out his spine. Yeah, the video test and the testimonials on our website with all the medical evidence. Yeah, he was 10 years old. Yeah,
Nice.
we've had like younger children come to some of our ayahuasca retreats, come into our meditation workshops, but he's the youngest one that's actually come through a full training.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so one thing I like to talk about is people's journeys and how they got to where they got. Can you just kind of talk about, I know you've talked about it a lot on other podcasts, so we don't have to go into so much detail, but just where you were before Star Magic and just kind of how you got there.
Yeah, I mean, before Star Magic, I was up to no good. I had a very colorful life, and I didn't believe in anything like this. I thought, God, infinite intelligence, the universe was for crazy, weird, strange people. And I was in a car crash with my ex-wife and children. I was asleep in a cab, traveling through the Transylvanian mountains, and we're on the way from Piatronam to Bucharest airport early one morning. And I was asleep in the passenger seat. Mrs. and kids were in the back, and I heard a loud crash. And I wake up, and there's glass and wind, and the car's swaying from side to side. And I thought to myself, boy, we're in a bad accident. We're going to hit the oncoming traffic, or the car will flip. And then all of a sudden, we came to a stop, and there was no other cars on the road. And it was just getting daylight. And I was like, this is weird. Like, what was that crash? Where did it come from? I looked at the taxi driver, and he looked scared, like petrified. Our daughter, Alea, she was underneath the driver's seat. Like, there was no seat belts in the cab. She was underneath the driver's seat. Laura was in the back with Josh, our son, in her arms, and uh, both their mouths are full of glass, and there was a hole in the windscreen. And there was blood dripping down my face, but I wasn't bleeding. I was like, this is weird, you know? So I get out of the cab, I look up the road, I see two ladies lying on the side of the road. One of them has got her ankles cut clean off, and one of them is physically okay. Both of them screaming. There's a guy that's come out from a nearby factory. He's on a mobile telephone. And I look about another 150 meters up the road, and there's what looks like a dead body. So I was just fixated on it. Like I've walked towards whatever this thing was on the floor, and I've got closer and closer, and I get within about ten meters, and I see the soul, this lady's soul just hovering above her body. And then I carry on walking, and I'm shaking my head like I don't really want to see it, but I do want to see it because I'm curious. And so I'm just shaking my head trying to get it to go, but it wouldn't go. And I get closer and closer, and the energy, the soul just disappears into the ether. I'm looking down at the lady's body. Her legs are wrapped up over her head. Her body's mangled. And it looked like someone had taken an old car to the scrap heap. Like whatever was inside this body, this energy source, it was gone. It was like, I don't need you anymore. See you later. No love lost, no thought process, just boom, I'm going. And I remember just looking up to the heavens and thinking, you know, I was just saying thank you. Like it felt like a time to celebrate. I wanted a whiskey and a cigarette, and I don't drink whiskey and I don't smoke cigarettes, but it's all I felt like. It felt like a time to celebrate. Like the universe was smacking me and saying, Jerry, wake up. Come on. You know, you need to wake up and smell the coffee. We're so much more than these physical bodies. We're atoms and molecules in continuous movement with space and energy. So this was my kind of wake up call. There were many other things sort of unfolding in my life at the time. I met a lady who worked for Scotland Yard in the psychic division who had a past life regression business. So I ended up getting introduced to her because my wife was seeing these spirits in the house, and all of this stuff was prompting me to go into the other side of this physical reality, into the quantum. And I ended up moving to New Zealand, 2009, met an old guy who taught me how to meditate. He had a pyramid in his garden, so I used to go around there and meditate every day. And I had some amazing experiences in there. One day, a space pod landed. I bring my light out of my body, which the lady who worked for Scotland Yard had trained me to do. Went and got in this spacecraft, flew through a portal, came out the other side after a few seconds in Alpha Centauri. And I'd never heard of Alpha Centauri, but I knew we were there. And I got out of the space pod, walked up the beach, and there were 200 of these blue beings, and they were my Lyran family, and they hugged me, felt so much love. They took me into this pyramid. It was like a translucent crystalline pyramid that was just, I don't know, the frequency was off the chart. And there was an old ancient blue being in there, and they gave me a download of code. Anyway, after it all happened, they put me in the space pod, flew me back to Earth. I got out of the space pod, went and got back in my body, went back into the meditation. And then we moved back to England a couple of years later, and I started seeing fairies and angels. And one of them told me to write a book called Into the Light. So I did it. And then during the writing of the book, I started seeing all these codes. And it was the same codes that got downloaded on Alpha Centauri. So I was asking what I needed to do with them. And my guides were saying, meditate, you're being lazy. So I started getting up in the morning, every morning really early with my son Josh. And we were going into meditation and going to these mystery schools underneath the pyramids. And there was a being there that was showing us these scrolls, and on the scrolls were codes, same codes I was seeing in the space, same codes in the download from Alpha Centauri, and they were showing us how to use them to heal people. So after about 9 months, people started coming into my life that needed healing. I was trying it, it was working. I had another little thing that came up when I came back from New Zealand. I got arrested for conspiracy to defraud the Bank of Scotland, holding a false travel document. I was looking at a long prison sentence. To cut a long story short, I said to the universe, listen, get me off this. I promise you, I'll let go of everything from my past, and I put my heart and my soul into healing. So I went to court. I was stood in a bulletproof dock, and the judge walks in, a male judge with his two female accomplices, and one of them had wings on her back, like angel wings. And she looked at me and winked, and I was like, no way, that can't be possible, you know? So anyway, the prosecution gave their side of the story. My solicitor gave the defense. They went out and deliberated, came back in, and they said, we can see you're a changed man. We'll give you a 1 year conditional discharge, an £80 court fee, you're free to go. So I walked out of court, that was 2015. And in March 2016, we started Star Magic. Did our first training in 2017 and have not looked back ever since, you know?
Nice. And
Yeah.
was there ever a moment when you were like doubting what was going on or thinking you were going crazy? Like, how did those around you react when you started talking about this stuff, back in 2009, 2010?
Yeah. So all of my close friends were doing the same as me. You know, they're all criminals and, you know, they didn't understand this stuff at all. And so when I was telling people about it, they thought I was nuts.
Hmm.
But in myself, like in my consciousness, in my heart, I just knew this was where I needed to go. It was, I don't know, it was so natural. Like it was all of this stuff that I was experiencing, you know, once I'd had some experiences which proved that what I was seeing was real,
Hmm.
and, you know, undeniable experiences that were backed up by what other people knew or had told me, I was like, this stuff is real. So what happened is the way that I met this lady that worked for Scotland Yard, I was in my house one day. We had a property business in London and we lost it, or we lost millions and we got kicked out of our house. I was on the street. So I went back to selling drugs and I moved into this rented accommodation with my ex-wife and kids. And I was watching TV one evening and my missus comes downstairs and she says, Jerry, um, you know, every time I close my eyes, I hear all these dark voices and see all these dark images. And when I'm pushing the kids down the road in the morning in the pushchair, something's trying to make me push the pushchair into the road to kill the children. And I looked at her and thought, this sounds nuts, you know, like, but I said to her, like, what do you want to do about it? She goes, I want to call my friend. She had a friend that was a priest. So this priest came around our house and she's dousing the house with all this energy. She puts crosses up and all this stuff. And I'm sat there thinking, this is like something out of the poltergeist, you know, this is nuts. Anyway, she calms Laura down and she goes to bed. So I went to see my mate the next day and I said, listen, bro, I said, this weird thing happened in our house last night. I said, what do you make of it? So I told him the story. He goes, you need to speak to this lady. And he knew this lady. So he didn't tell me anything about her. He just gave me a telephone number. So I phoned her up. I left a message. She called me back and she said, you know, what's happening? I said, well, this weird situation happened last night. And I told her. She said, where do you live? I said 316 Richmond Road. That's the only bit of the address I gave her. There's loads of Richmond roads in the whole of the United Kingdom. Anyway, I'm on the phone like this, and she goes, have you been knocking some walls down? I said, well, actually, we rent the place, but the previous owners have definitely built an extension. She goes, yeah, you've got an angry old man in your house. I'm like, an angry old man? I said, okay, well, let's pretend there is an angry old man in the house. What are we going to do about it? She goes, I'll get rid of him for you. I said, brilliant. When can you come round? She goes, oh, I don't need to come round. I can do it from here. So, and she was like 3 hours drive away. So I'm thinking this is just getting weirder, you know? So I went back home and I said to Laura, my missus, I said, listen, I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I've spoke to this lady about what happened last night. And she reckons there's an angry old man in the house. And Laura turns around to me and goes, I know, Jerry, I've seen him. So I thought, okay, you're telling me you've seen an angry old man. This lady up the road who none of us have ever met, and you've definitely not ever spoken to her, she's saying there's an angry old man. There must be some truth to it, you know? So I phoned her back up. I was like, listen, I don't know what you do, but I have to come and see you. So that's when I went up to see her, and she progressed me into a past life, and she helped me heal something that I was going through, which was kind of quite traumatic, and it just made so much sense to me. And then I was involved in some remote viewing exercises, which got, um, you know, proved that, you know, what I was seeing was right. And so I started to build confidence in all this stuff. And I just had more and more experiences. And when you start to work on people, you know, without ever speaking to them, and then you get information, then you meet them and you share it with them, and they're giving you all the confirmation, and you get so much clarity, your confidence just grows. And then you start to understand, you know, what you're seeing and experiencing beyond this physical realm is real. And so from there, it just grows and expands. And so I just kind of took to it like a duck takes to water, and I just loved it. And I was just hungry for more knowledge. I just wanted to know what else is there. okay, now I know this. What can I do with that? Like, how can I expand and grow? I would just read books. I would journey, meditate. I would go and see this lady from Scotland Yard 3 times every week for years, like trying to get more knowledge, going into hundreds of past lives, just discovering the quantum field. So I just find it fascinating. But all in those early days, I was still up to no good. So I was doing that and still, making money the wrong way. But what actually happened is I was making so much money, I didn't know what to do with it. So I had bags of cash. So I was saying to some people that I knew, what can I do with this money? I want to do something good with it. So through some contacts that I had, we would put the money into a bank account and send it to Africa. So we started building water pipelines, schools, permaculture projects, putting wells and all this stuff in place. And then when the letters came back to say, this is amazing, this is what we've done with your money, I felt really good about it. And it was the first time in my life that I actually felt good about giving money to other people instead of just buying like a nice suit or a watch or a house or a car and doing some dumb shit with it, which I thought I needed to make myself happy. But that was a very, very big, important part of my journey because it helped to shift me from actually understanding about giving and helping other people and being kind instead of just wanting to spend it all on rubbish.
Yeah, and there's 2 points there I want to touch on because it's important with the you just kept going, you did the verification, things were being shown proven, and then you just kept, digging into it more and more. When I work with people and I'm teaching them how to journey or anything else, it's you just got to keep going, and then slowly you'll start seeing that verification. You work on somebody and you'll see a transformation happen, and that just gives you more fuel to your fire and truly lets you know that, oh, this does work. Because when I first started my training on the other modalities, I'm like, am I really doing this? Is this actually working? But then you see a shift in the person later on, and you're like, oh, sweet. This stuff does work. I'm going to keep going. And I think that's important for people to realize when they're starting out and they're like, oh, this doesn't work. It maybe not right in that moment, or you're just not seeing the subtlety that you might be impacting around you, but give it time and you will see more and more proof that these things work. And I wanted to touch up on the donation stuff because you also have an organization right now doing the same thing where you're giving back. You're not just building a company and taking on thousands and thousands of dollars from people around the world. You're actually still giving back to people and trying to build these healing centers around the world. And I think that's admirable. A lot of people don't do that in your situation. They get to this point within their journey and they start making money, and sometimes the ego takes over, and then you have like, I say it a lot, but those preachers with the God told them to get a expensive jet versus giving the money back to the people. You actually go out and try to help others around you.
Yeah, I mean, uh, ever since going all the way back to like, 2006, 7, 8, when we were doing that stuff in Africa, when we moved to New Zealand, we set up like a health and fitness center, like a mixed martial arts gym, strength and conditioning camp, and we were helping lots of the Maori community, which were very, very obese and overweight, because of the diet and just lifestyle and stuff. And we started putting on these boxing events and mixed martial arts events. And we would do it for like battered women. So women that were, having turbulent, troublesome relationships, or we would give money back to the charity and stuff. And that was another stepping stone in helping the Maori community. And then when we moved back to England, one of the first things I did, there was a typhoon in the Philippines, and like some loads of villages got destroyed. And I knew one of my business partners, he knew a group of people that did all of this humanitarian work. So I tagged along with him and I took my daughter and we went for 2 weeks to 3 different places in the Philippines, and we rebuilt communities, homes. We were painting and banging nails and just really getting dirty. And I did some government motivational programs and different things. The place was smashed. There was like massive metal ships, like hundreds of feet long, right in the middle of the town. So many people died. It was crazy. So I took my daughter and we went on that humanitarian mission. And then we've been to Cambodia. We've again put stuff in place for children, schools, water projects like wells and plumbing and different things. We've been working with this company in Africa again for the last 2 years, where we've been getting kids from the streets and educating them and different things. We do all that kind of stuff. And then the other side of it is like the healing center stuff, which we're in the process of building at the moment, which will be, that they'll be built and they will make money, but 20% to start with of everything that we do is going to be given to people that haven't got any money. So in every single workshop, in every single training, in every single medicine retreat, you can have 20% of the people there that we gave places to because they couldn't afford it. So that's going to be our way of giving back through that to start with. And then hopefully at some point when we kind of re-engineer this kind of like, I don't know, the world that we live in at the moment, and the energy exchange kind of shifts a little bit, hopefully it'll be a place where people can just turn up and come, and there's some different kinds of exchange where it's not so much monetary based, but some kind of other kind of energetic exchange. I don't know what that would be, but that's the plan.
Yeah. And speaking on that, because I have been curious about your thoughts on this, I've had some other people come on. We've talked about current prophecies that are in line where the shift is happening. Astrologically, it looks like there's a big shift happening. I recently had somebody on who was talking about how we're shifting to like the 5D reality. Like, there's a lot of talk about ascension, some disclosure, but like this huge shift in humanity and how we look at things. And some people feel we're going through this rough turmoil right now because we need to get to the point where everyone just says enough, we're not doing this anymore. And so what's kind of your thoughts on that, ascension? Are we really elevating to another plane? Is there going to be some split between two earths? Like, is it just, hopefully that makes sense, but that
Yeah,
talk that's
yeah.
going on right now.
No, no, no. It makes complete and utter sense. And it's a good topic of discussion. And I would say a lot of people are delusional, and a lot of people don't really understand the nature of reality, and exactly what's unfolding at the moment. Because yeah, we are in like a timeline shift. We are in a timeline split, and the vibration of humanity is different across the board. Some people are staying in a more third dimensional space. Some people are moving through that mental fourth dimensional space bridge to 5D. Ultimately, right now on Earth, what we have to do is to kind of move into this love frequency and enable us all to hold it. But to stay in the fifth dimension, you've got to be anchored into the sixth, and the sixth is unity consciousness. Now we are going through this ascension process, but a lot of people think like, oh, you know what, we're ascending, so in a couple of years it's all going to be great. No, this ascension process it's a long thing. Now, ultimately, there is no time. So is it a long thing
Hmm.
or isn't it a long thing? It's just a thing that we're going through, and it's a vibrational thing. And that vibrational thing isn't based on time, it's based on frequency and energy. And we have to understand that this world and this planet has been anchored into some really corrupted geometries and frequencies for millions of years. And to undo that, just like that, it's not an easy feat. It would require pretty much most humans to get on the same page. And most humans are not on the same page. Now, during Easter this year, we entered into this like phase of space-time where we've anchored fully into the sixth dimensional grid structure, which is unity consciousness. Now, that doesn't mean we're in unity consciousness, because you've just got to look around the world and you're going to see that. But we have anchored in there, and we have to anchor in there to be able to move through the fifth dimension. Now, this phase that we've entered into, where we've anchored into the unity consciousness grids, is a 38,000-year window in human time. That's kind of like seems like a long time.
Hmm.
If we're going to live to 100, even if we live to 150, even if we live to 500, it's a long time, 38,000 years. Now, we weren't supposed to enter into that 38,000 window for another 5, 10 years, but that goes to show how much humanity is doing on, activating its consciousness, expansion, leveling up of frequency, and moving into more coherence and harmony as a human global population. But it's still a long way to go. And it may be that if we keep working like this, that 38,000 year window, maybe 20,000 years or 18,000 years or 22,000 years, but it's still a long time when you think about it. Now, in the grand scheme of the cosmos, it's not, it's a blip. Like 38,000 years is nothing when you're talking about billions and billions of years. It's nothing whatsoever. It's like a drop in the vast ocean of time. But for us humans, it's a long time. And we have to understand that this ascension process is going to take this amount of time, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer, but it's not happening overnight. Like we have, as a human species, a lot of stuff to go through before we're going to come out the other side and everything's kind of beautiful, you know? And one of the things that keeps us trapped is everybody wanting to be all love and light. Let's all be love and light and sunshine and rainbows. Now, ultimately, love is beautiful and we want to be in that love frequency. But if we don't go into the darkness and alchemize our shadows and bring all of those wounded little boys and all those wounded little girls into coherence and turn them into kings and queens, then we're never going to be able to rise with our crowns on and take back control of the kingdom. So what we have to do as human beings is do the inner work, do the shadow work, bring ourselves into balance, just like in Star Wars, like Return of the Jedi. Like the Jedi comes to Earth every 13,000 years, and we're in that 13,000 year period now. So this is the ultimate period that human beings are actually doing the inner work, bringing the light and the dark into perfect balance, bringing the electrical and the magnetic, the masculine and the feminine into perfect inner union, where we can become whole and coherent. And that's the only way we're going to stabilize an external, coherent, worldly environment. And it all starts within every single human. So we've got to do the inner work. We have to realize that no one's coming to save us. You mentioned disclosure. There is going to be no extraterrestrials that are coming here right now to help us and pull us out of whatever mess we think we're in. We're not really in a mess. We're just going through a natural process. And we're in a training ground. And training grounds aren't supposed to be easy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be training grounds. They don't send the best elite operatives to the Navy SEALs or to the SAS in the UK to be, to go on an easy ride. They send them there to test their mettle and to sharpen them and to focus them and turn them into the elite soldiers. Who do they let come down to planet Earth? Elite beings like you, like me, and every other human on this planet. To be here right now on the front line of humanity's greatest awakening, you've got to have trained for a very long time and gone through a whole heap of shit to be like versed enough to be thrown into this jungle reality, knowing you're going to forget absolutely everything and then have to find your way back home, back to your heart, back to love, amongst the chaos and the distraction and the distortion. And we think about this chaos and distraction and distortion as something that's not very good. We think about evil that's not very good. But all of this stuff is perfectly designed to make us run the gauntlet over and over until we figure it out and to realize that there was nowhere to run in the first place. We were already home in our hearts. We just got cloaked in loads of rubbish and layers of this and that, and we're peeling back the layers of the onion just to find that we're already there in the first place. It's a crazy, wild, beautiful game that we're playing. And at the same time, there is evil. There is darkness on this planet and this human reality. There's lots of things that happen that aren't nice, but it's all part of a great big jigsaw puzzle. And what we have to do is to navigate the game. And the quicker we navigate the game, the quicker we can return ourselves and Earth back to heaven, back to a form of glory.
Yeah, like I had a guest on once who she called it the bliss trap. You get stuck in this, oh, everything's love and light, and I'll be perfectly safe, I'll be perfectly fine. But you're right, you're not, because you do need to work on the shadow. You do need to integrate the shadow. We don't want to just ignore the shadow and push it aside and throw it in a box and ignore it so that we can be all love and light. We need to look at those parts of ourselves and figure out how to integrate them in a way that makes sense. Like there's a time to be angry. There's a time to fight back. There's a time to do these things that might seem aggressive and dark, but if you're using it for the right purpose, like you mentioned with the Jedi, Jedis kill people, but they do it in a way that's protecting others and taking care of what needs to be taken care of. The dark side will go out and just kill people for fun. There's a big difference. It's, working and integrating ourselves is the only way to truly discover ourselves. And too many people just want to completely ignore it. I see it all the time. Oh, if I just live with the right frequency of love and perfection and light, no entities will attach onto me, nothing will harm me, everything's going to work out, I will manifest everything I want, and it doesn't always work that way for a lot of them. And I guess with that, like, because that kind of goes into, personal responsibility. What is a way that people need to look at that shadow work? What is a good technique to get started?
Yeah, I mean, personal responsibility for me and everyone that works in our team is like a high priority. There's an amazing book called Extreme Ownership,
Hmm.
written by Jocko Willink, an ex like Navy SEAL, and he takes, his combat experience and brings it into everyday usable, like scenarios. And so we make everybody in our team read Extreme Ownership. And extreme ownership it's not easy because you have to take extreme ownership for absolutely every tiny little thing. It means you can't blame anybody for anything. And when you actually start to like put this into practice, there's times when you're like, how do I take ownership from this? They've just done this 8 times and it's completely like not right. And so there are times when you might have to say, listen, I've guided you and I've explained it to you, it's time to go, but like you still have to take extreme ownership for everything that's going on. You can never blame anyone for anything. Even if you're driving down the road and someone crashes their car into you, you have to take ownership, because if you don't take ownership, you're handing your power over to the experience. So once you adopt extreme ownership, your power comes within, and then you can start to dominate in a positive and powerful way. So what I would say to anyone that's on this journey, before you can do the shadow work, you've got to master being present. You've got to be able to be still, because unless you're still, you're not going to be able to kind of develop those levels of self-awareness to spot the shadows in action. Because the shadows can be very subtle, sometimes they can be very blatant, but they will always rise and appear, and you'll often see them in other people. It's quite often our closest relationships that mirror back to us where we need to look at. But if you're not in extreme ownership, you're going to look at the other person and say, you're this and you're that. But a self-aware human being is going to say, thank you for pissing me off. Thank you for pressing my buttons. I'm so grateful. You've just shown me another element of myself that I need to work on. And then you go into your heart, you get really still, and you ask, where did this come from? Why am I feeling guilty right now? Why am I feeling angry right now? Why do I feel rejected or frustrated or shamed? And then you get very, very still and you dive into the labyrinth of your heart, which is a stargate into the unknown, which contains all the information, all the questions, all the answers. So you start to get to know yourself at a deep level. You might be taken back to your childhood, a teenage reality. You may be taken into the quantum world, into a past life or a future life, which are all just now in the field. There is no past and future. But presence is the ultimate key, the ultimate doorway into the stillness, into the unknown, into the self-awareness. And from there, you've got a foundational standpoint to start doing the shadow work. But until you can become still, you're not going to be able to do that. So how do you get still? Well, you've got to learn to breathe properly. In schools, the first thing they should teach children is how to breathe and how to read your body, because your body is a communication device. If I've got bad hips, I know that I don't trust. And because I don't trust, I'm not moving in the right direction. So my hips are trying to communicate and tell me that. If I've got a bad neck, I know that I'm stubborn and rigid. If I've got something going on with my pancreas, I know I've been betrayed, my liver, guilt, anger. Like every body part means something. If you taught children how to breathe properly into their belly, consciously, they'd activate their calm receptors. There'd be no depression, no anxiety. Everyone would be living from coherence and stillness and balance. And because they're breathing deeply, they wouldn't be bouncing around in here. And when you're not bouncing around in here, you take away that 0.25 second window between stimulus and response. So you step out of reaction and into response. So you're calm, you're coherent, you're still. And from that space, now you know how to read your body, you can start communicating with it. And because you're not thinking all the time and you're still, because you're breathing into your belly, you can actually hear what your body's telling you. Now you know how to heal yourself. Now you know you don't need to go to Big Pharma. You don't need to go to a healer. You don't need me. You don't need anybody. You don't need a shaman. You don't need anybody. You can just like sort everything out yourself. Now you become sovereign. Okay. And from there, like the whole world becomes your oyster. The whole universe becomes your oyster.
Yeah, that's what I tell people a lot too, is like everyone can do this work. Everybody has the ability to do this work. It's just we've forgotten for some reason, or and it's just getting back into remembering and understanding that we all have this power, this ability. It's not a select few of us who can do this work. It's out there. It's but a lot of people just don't see it that way. We keep wanting to put our power, like you mentioned earlier, into others, whether it's a doctor, a shaman, a healer. We don't want to sit there and actually look at ourselves. I still get clients who come in and they just want like the quick fix. And I'm like, this isn't going to be a quick thing. Like, you need to do the deeper work and you need to look at these issues and why this stuff is coming up. This isn't just some pill we're going to give you and you're going to move on and completely ignore what's going on. That's not how it should work.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and you can come for a healing session, you can come for a session with you in shamanism, whoever it is that you're going to go and see, they're going to create a shift. They're going to create some change. They're going to create some flow. But ultimately, it's only going to take you to the next level. And if you don't keep doing the inner work, you're going to get stuck at the next level. So you're better off just doing the inner work now, riding the frequency of whatever healing session or shamanistic session you've been through, plant medicine, whatever it is, and do the inner work and just keep going. Because there's always different layers and levels that come up. And you might be great for a couple of years and then boom, something else like comes up and you're like, man, I dealt with that 2 years ago. But we live in a spiral. The universe is spiralistic. So we start here, we're moving forwards and round. But when we get back to here again, 2 years down the line, we're on the same point, but just further down the timeline. So the same pattern comes up again, but a deeper level of it. And that's okay. You've not done anything wrong. It's not that you didn't do it well in the first place. It's just that now you're ready for the next stage of your evolution. So just keep doing the inner work. It's a daily thing for every human, to stay in that 0 point.
And it's one thing I was watching too in the videos. It's kind of an off topic, but goes together. We were talking about like healing organs and stuff like that, and a lot of organ issues come from emotional like baggage, wounds, things that happen. You mentioned earlier with the neck and the body parts, but you also show how to like I guess regrow organs or replace them with holograms, and so they kind of take over in the body. Like, I know there's no, reality is kind of what we make up of it. My understanding of star magic is kind of because I'm in IT, so it's like our bodies are basically a computer system. You're reprogramming, the software and then kind of putting it back in. If I might be simplifying it too much, but that's kind of my impression of it so far. Has there been a time where you've done the work on somebody, but they haven't made the necessary changes or haven't addressed the issues, and maybe those problems come back? Or how does it work?
Yeah. So it's different for every human being. Like my job as a facilitator is to go in and reprogram their biological computer. Like this biological spacesuit is such an incredible thing. So everything is code. So if someone comes to me, let's just talk about organs and body parts because that's what you sort of brought up. So I remember being on a facilitator training online during COVID, and there was a lady from Australia, and she had one lung. and she could only walk a few steps up the stairs without getting puffed out. Like her VO2 max was so low, and she just she just couldn't function properly. So anyway, on the training on Zoom, I went into a past life and I found a lifetime where she was a man and something had happened. She'd been betrayed. There was a lot of grief around it, and grief gets stored in the lungs. So anyway, I changed the code in the quantum to do with this past life where she was a man. And then I gave her a quantum lung. Now, this lady's now out doing marathons. So how do you go from that to doing a marathon? It's crazy. It goes to show that our organs are literally energy. Because if you can put energy in and create a lung for someone, and then they go out and they start running marathons, it just backs it up. Now, that lady is still doing marathons and she's fine. Another scenario, I had a lady on this was a training again, this was an in-person training. This was in Romania years ago. And a lady came that was on kidney dialysis. And her face was yellow. There was scabs all over her face, and she'd put loads of makeup on. I felt really sorry for her because like she'd really tried to cover it up, because obviously imagine being a beautiful young woman and you got scabs all over your face. So anyway, she's got makeup on, and I think it was the second day of the training, I used her as a volunteer. And I did God's mouth. You see it on the videos where we put our hands on the back of the neck and over the forehead. She dropped down to the floor and she went freezing cold and she's sweating at the same time. And she was out on the floor for maybe an hour and a half. Anyway, she comes back round. The next day, I do another demonstration on her. I lay her down on a healing bed, and I went into a lifetime where she was an extraterrestrial. She was in a spacecraft and she was being chased through the cosmos by some really negative extraterrestrials. Now, she had kidney issues. Okay, kidneys hold fear. So in this other galactic lifetime, she's being chased and she ended up getting caught in this kind of meteor by these other beings, and they tortured her and did all sorts of horrible things. Anyway, I rewound the timeline and changed the reality, created a new piece of code, downloaded it into her biological computer, her body and brain, overrode the old programming and downloaded new light. I then took her up onto a spacecraft holographically with a Palladian being that I work with called Rihanna, and we ran her through this kind of like operating desk, and they just replenished the kidneys. Anyway, come back down. She doesn't need dialysis anymore. About 3 months went past. I mean, all the scabs are gone, all the jaundice is gone. She looks beautiful, no dialysis. And then she had a little bit of a relapse. And she messaged me and she said, Jerry, I had a strange thing happened. Like something happened and my right kidney just kind of packed in again. So I did a session with her, went in and found a piece of code that we missed the first time around. So I went back in, changed it, tweaked it in the back end of a biological computer. Ever since that day, no issues. And that was like 6, 7 years ago now. So she ended up getting married and she's got a beautiful life now. But that's two different examples. One where there was nothing else to do, and one where there was a relapse. What can happen sometimes, we as facilitators may miss a piece of code. Okay, so there might be a massive shift and they're great, but there's a bit of a tweak that needs to be done later on. The other thing that can happen is a human being can fall back into an old program. Like they could get railroaded in this human reality by some kind of external force. It could be a human being, an old relationship, an old boyfriend or girlfriend comes back into their lifetime, and all that work they've done to grow, they've just kind of shrunk themselves back down to be with that person and lost a lot of ground. And sometimes they can fall back into old patterns and programs, and that old stuff can surface. Sometimes that old boyfriend or girlfriend will come back in and they've grown and they're like, no chance. And so they're just gone because, they're just solid. Now, if a person's doing the work every day, they're never going to let an old boyfriend or girlfriend come back in unless that old girlfriend or boyfriend has risen to a different level of frequency and there's a match. If there's no kind of like match of vibration, then you just got to say no. So yeah,
Yeah.
like different scenarios.
Yeah, I see that a lot, especially with like plant medicine ceremonies. People go into plant medicine. They'll get shown things from Mama Aya. Mama Aya will do some healing on them, but then they go back to their daily grind, their daily life. They don't make any changes. They're on that ceremonial high for a couple months, and then things start shifting back to the way it was before because they didn't actually implement or make any of the changes that they were perhaps shown or given. And I see that happen a lot with people. And then they're just kind of doing another ceremony. They're chasing that high again, trying to get back to where they were, but they're still not addressing the work. And they're just getting rewounded, or they're just stuck with dead end job, bad relationship, insert issue here for that person. But I see it a lot where they just don't integrate afterwards, especially in those kind of scenarios.
Integration is the biggest thing, it's like, I call them like download junkies, or upgrade junkies. Like you see people that will be like just chasing
Yep.
meditation or activations or DNA upgrades, like they're chasing like a crackhead on a crack pipe. So they get the hit, and then they're in heaven, but then a few hours later they need another hit on the pipe, so they're out stealing, doing everything they can to get buy another lump of crack. Now these people in this spiritual community, some of them are having a download and they're feeling amazing for a couple of weeks, and then they want another one. But what's happening is they're not integrating the first one. They're not sitting with it and embodying the frequency and the code that they've just downloaded. And so what can happen is they just keep downloading and downloading, and the electrical system gets overloaded. They can get ill, they can get sick, they can have, things happen in their reality where there's a lot of shadows surfacing, and the shadow can surface in an uncontrollable fashion and open the gateway for entities, shadow parasites, demonic beings, because the person's shadow is rising so hard and fast that they're in deep guilt, deep anger, and they don't know how to control it because there's no embodiment, there's no process. And so the entities are just feeding off of that and siphoning the energy and putting thoughts in the person's head and sending them like on a cascade, like on a railroad track into the depths of despair. So if someone is working at these decent levels and upgrading and having these, whether it's a plant medicine retreat or a breathwork retreat or whatever it is, they're opening up different layers and levels, different dimensional fields, different experiences, and different expressions of consciousness from within themselves and from the environment around them. And if they haven't got a plan and a way forwards, and have been told this is the daily work that you need to do every day, they're going to come unstuck. And so the work is so important. Like I do the work every day. I wake up, meditation, breath work, exercise, gym, running, doing all the things that I need to do to keep me sharp, still, focused, and primed for success. And if I miss a day, I feel it.
Mhm.
You don't feel it enough after a day to think this isn't good. It takes a few days or a week, and then you're right down the rabbit hole. So that's why you've got to stay on top of it and do something every day to keep your vibration high. Because if your vibration's really high, you might come down 30%, but you still feel great. But there's a massive difference between 70 and 100. You're absolutely impenetrable at 100. 90 is really hard to get to you. 80, there's a few little like slits and gaps where things can creep in. You start going into 70, 60, you become an open book. But you don't notice it because you're just skipping a few days. But if you stay every single day doing the work, you maintain that 100% baseline, your standards are high, and energetically, nothing's going to slip in. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you're just on point.
No, yeah, I agree. And I try to do the same thing. Obviously, once in a while I don't do that, but then I do notice it as well. It's just like, oh, I'm getting really annoyed or frustrated right now. Why? Oh, I didn't do my daily exercises. I didn't do what I needed to do. I decided to sleep in, and now I feel like crap because I didn't get up and do what needed to be done. And now I'm stressed about the rest of the day instead of having those 2, 3 hours in the morning, because I'll get up at like 3:30, 4 in the morning, and that's when I start doing all my practices. I'll go work out, and then by then it's like, okay, the kids are getting up, and then I'll deal with that. If I skip that, I'm the same way where I'm just like, "Ah, I don't want to deal with any. Like, and then I feel my energy levels go down, and just becomes a horrible thing. But yeah, it's doing your practices, whatever they look like for you, but getting in tune with yourself and working on yourself is important for sure, and people need to address it.
Discipline, discipline. We need to be disciplined.
Yeah, it's not fun sometimes. It's not easy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it's, I used to be in the military, and that was part of the thing. You had to be there at a certain time. You had to get things done. And you learn that discipline through that, and it just became second nature to you. And it's the same way when you're doing your own practices. The more you do it, put it on your calendar, schedule it, set your alarms, you'll get so used to doing it that it just becomes that second nature, and it's not that grind anymore. It becomes fun. Like it's part of what you do and who you are.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And then I am curious, trying to think of the right way to word this. Are you finding more and more codes as you're doing these different activations, or is it kind of the codes are there, it's just different ways of using it? Because I saw a video too where you mentioned you're going around the world and like activating the dragon grid to try to counteract the grids that were placed on this earth.
So there are codes that are just available in the space.
Hmm.
Not all codes are good codes. Some codes are corrupted. And so you have to understand, where is this frequency source coming from? Ultimately, you want to be plugged into what we would call the God worlds, the like source intelligence outside of this 15th dimensional time matrix. Taking that electrical energy and running it down through the central column, plugging into the earth at a multi-dimensional level. So you might want to plug into the earth 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9D plus. And so at different times and in different moments, you're running different frequencies, depending on the architecture that you're playing with. Because as humans and as multi-dimensional beings in these kind of like physical avatars, we are multi-dimensional and having experiences in different fields of frequency and dimension. So we don't just want to be plugging into like source energy. Okay, we want to be plugging into frequencies that are coming from a 12th dimensional, 11th dimensional, 10th dimensional space, which are much higher than where we are, but different elements of our light body and our own geometry and our own mathematics. And it's the mathematics and the geometry in the space that enable our physical body to function properly. Like, we're an extension of the space, and the space is an extension of us. So it's about tapping into the right frequencies and the right codes that are clean and pure at the specific dimensional level, and plugging them into the right part of your own human multidimensional architecture. So there are new codes and new frequency bands that you'll discover at certain points, especially when you're journeying and you're working, and you're doing the work. You find new councils that you can talk to. You find different ways of facilitating the healing of different processes. It could be breaking contracts. It could be removing negative demonic beings. Like, there's all different things that you're discovering all the time. Now, not all of it is necessary. Some of it can be a distraction because you've got your baseline processes that actually work. Do you need to deviate for that? Well, you might want to explore it to see what it's all about. And then you think, well, actually, I'll just leave that because what I've got works, and this is unnecessary. So it's about kind of understanding all of the gadgets that are on the shelf for sale, and which ones are actually going to benefit you in your own kind of like tool shed and your practice to get the job done. And for me, it's about being efficient, getting it done quickly, and making sure that it works. So if I can get it done quickly, make sure that it works, it's nice and safe, then I'm going to go for the quickest, fastest, safest option every single time. But I'm one of those people that, if I have an inclination that I might be able to do it better, I'm going to explore it just to see, because it could be a better tool. But quite often you look into it and think, what, actually it was just a waste of time. But unless you explore that avenue, you're never going to know.
Hmm.
coming onto the grids about 2 years ago, I was actually going through a really deep healing process myself, and my right knee was like it was really playing up. Like what happened is I met these beings called the Cosmic Grandfathers 2 years ago in June, about 2 years ago now. But the previous Christmas or November before that, I had a bad knee, and I lost all the documents to my car, and so I couldn't drive it. And I phoned the DVLA in the UK and I said, listen, I need another document. And they were like, we're sorting it out for you, Mr. Sargeant. And like months went past and they never did. Anyway, that was like November, December. The following March, I went to Egypt. We were doing our Egypt tour, and me and some of the guys were doing some sprint training when the boat was docked on the Nile. So I'm doing some sprint training and my knee properly blew out. So I end up getting back to the boat. The next day, we did a magic mushroom ceremony on the Nile, sailing down the Nile. And my son Josh worked on my knee, boom, totally 100% again. That was March. Then I went to Mexico in April and I'm in the gym and it blew out again. So the universe is trying to give me a sign, okay? Now the knee is about ego, it's about support, it's the masculine side, all of this stuff. So anyway, I sort of like semi get it 100% again. And then what happens is it's now June 2 years ago, and we had our FT2 and FT3 training online. My knee completely blew out. So I'm on crutches. And because I was on crutches, my left shoulder blew out. Like crazy. So the universe is basically flatlining me because I wasn't listening. So what happened is I lay on the sofa for like 2 weeks and I'm going into all these realities and finding all this stuff out to heal my knee. And I ended up eventually figuring it out. And I'm lying on my sofa crying, right? Like, because it was such a beautiful, intense, deep healing experience. So I'm lying on my sofa crying, and my phone rings. And it was a withheld number, but something told me I needed to answer it. So I answered it. I said, hello. They said, hello, Mr. Sargeant. It's the DVLA. We've got your paperwork for your car. We're sorry about the delay, but we're gonna post it out special delivery tomorrow morning. And they put the phone down because I'd actually done the healing, and the universe was my car was a representation, and it's the universe communicating to me saying, Jerry, be still. Jerry, slow down. Jerry, stop what you're doing. Go into your heart and do the inner work. But I wasn't doing it deep enough to get to this point. So in the end, the universe incapacitated me to the point where I couldn't walk. I couldn't even walk on crutch. I had to hop around the house. So anyway, I fixed it in the end, and I was sat on my sofa after this phone call, and this big blue being comes through the fireplace, and he says, "My name's Moro." He's one of the Cosmic Grandfathers, and he was like, his head was as big as my front room. These beings like 60 foot tall, they're massive. And there's 8 of them, but I only met the first one at this point. I've met all 8 of them now. But he said to me, you need to go to these 15 countries and you need to put crystals in each one. And I said, what crystals are they? So he told me there was a unakite egg and this 2-pointed clear quartz, masculine and feminine crystals. So anyway, I had these 15 locations. I bought a map of the world off Amazon. It got delivered and I put the 15 points on, drew them together, and it made a dragon's wing. I was like, no way, this is crazy. So I flew to the 15 countries in 4.5 weeks, buried these crystals, and then I got the download for the tail and the head and the neck. So I went to do the tail, which was New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, all right down that end of the world. And then Jamaica and Belize, Miami, a few places in America. That was the head and the neck. And I'm in the process now of building the second wing. I've only done 3 locations. I've got 12 to go. So once this new dragon's wing is built, and it's funny as well, the next 15 locations actually form another dragon's wing. It's nuts. So anyway, once these 15 locations are built on the second wing, they'll all be linked together electromagnetically, and we're going to open some new stargates, throughout this grid. And it's a 7th dimensional, like masculine grid, which is being put in place to hold the new feminine frequencies coming to Earth. Because the electrical supports the magnetic, the masculine supports the feminine, the protection, the creation, the anchor, the structure, and the flow. So yeah, this new grid is very important for the expansion of consciousness on Earth.
Nice. And what do you think corrupted Earth's, I guess, original grids? Was that done intentionally, or is that just something that happened over time? Because you mentioned that earlier about, it's just all corrupt on the grid system, or part of it anyway.
Yeah, so it happened over time, but it was done intentionally. So the dragons and other beings, some of the creator beings, they helped build the infrastructure of this planet. They helped like build the grid structures, the ley lines, the dragon lines. I mean, the ley lines and the dragon lines are slightly different, but they're called dragon lines. It's like Mother Earth's nervous system, like electromagnetic or electrical energy or magnetic frequency flows through this grid, and it kind of powers Mother Earth. It's like her nervous system. Like we have 45 miles of electrical wire in our nervous system in our body. That's her nervous system. She's an electromagnetic being, just like we're electromagnetic beings. Now, dotted around the planet, you've got primary stargates, secondary stargates, different portal points, different nodal points, which pull off-planet frequency into the planet. They run it through the ley lines and the grids up through our nervous systems and into our human bodies. Sometimes they come directly from the nodal points around the planet into our spinal column, our 33 vertebrae, and then they flow into our kind of upgraded fifth dimensional heart and through our multi-dimensional architecture. Now, we as humans, if you go back like way back, but millions of years, like we first came to this planet as Stargate Guardians. We're planetary custodians. The Stargates are operational because of the keys and the codes that we have inside of us. So humans are actually really important to keep around on planet Earth. And that's why some of these higher negative beings that have, got slightly more initiative than us, the dark side, whatever you want to call them, they're much better organized than the light. And so they've put a lot of infrastructure in place that feeds off of our energy. And so they keep us on this planet dumb and stupid so that we don't remember it that we're Stargate Guardians, so we don't remember that we're powerful. So we don't activate our full 13-strand templated DNA matrix and come fully online, because if we did, we'd be taking back control of this planet just like that. It doesn't matter what weaponry they've got, they'd never be able to control us. We'd just be able to stop it in a heartbeat with our supersonic, superhuman powers. But we're not there at the moment, and that's by design, because if we get there, then we're a managed planet, and if you allow the humans on the planet to gain full recall and full potential, you're not going to have a managed planet anymore. And the beings are then going to understand how to travel multidimensionally, interdimensionally, using the Stargate systems. Now, the beings that are controlling the Stargate systems, they're using them for interdimensional and multidimensional travel. They're using them for slave trades, all different reasons, arms deals, different things that are happening through these systems. And they were crystalline grid structures, which meant pure energy just used to flow through them and power the planet. But now there's corrupted frequency flowing through some of these stargates. And the corrupted frequency isn't corrupted frequency that these beings have put there. The corrupted frequency is the negative energy that they're drawing from us down into the grids to be stored in batteries all around the planet. So our fear, our guilt, our shame, any kind of low frequency energy is drawn out from our body down into the grids and is sent to different huge crystals around the planet. And the energy is stored, and that energy is utilized in many different ways. They use it they send it up to space and rebound it off the moon on a full moon back down to Earth. It's why there's more murders, more suicides, more crazy things happening, because they're using our own negative energy against us. They're broadcasting it off that big bright moon, which is like a satellite dish. And they store this frequency to use it against us, to keep us in a lower frequency band, so that they can get a good yield every year. Like a farmer gets a good yield from his crops. The tomato plants, the apple orchards, they have a certain yield that comes out. This planet, it produces a yield of negative energy. What we have to do is to remember our way back home to our hearts, raise our vibration, live in love, live in unity, live in strength, live in focus, become the protectors as the masculine, The feminine needs to return to their kind of magnetic flow. And as that, electrical protection and that magnetic flow comes together, we can bring heaven back to earth, through our inner union and then our external union and relationship. So that's why there's such a big thing on the planet at the moment about messing up the genders.
Hmm.
I mean, when me and you grew up, there was boys and girls, you know, and that was it. Now you got all these different types of genders, but you've still got the same genitalia, penises and testicles and vaginas and breasts. So how do you get all these other genders from it? I mean, it's by design, it's by manipulation because they want us to be confused because they're tipping the polarity between the masculine and the feminine. When there's no polarity, there's no attraction. So when you've got a whole masculine and a whole feminine coming together, they're like a stargate. That frequency that goes out into the earth is unmatched. Sexual energy, when controlled and utilized in the right way, in and out of relationship, is powerful.
Hmm.
When you've got two whole people coming together in union, it's powerful. And so the control of the pineal gland, the corruption of shifting this gender game, like getting us confused. I don't know how many genders there are now. 150, 200 is crazy, right? But
Depends on the country.
yeah, a lot of confusion. I was on one of our trainings last year, and a lady came from Germany, and she was in pieces. And I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "My daughter wants to chop her own breasts off." And so I had a chat with her. I didn't, what can you say, Anyway, a day later in the training, she's even more broken down. I said, "What's going on?" She said, "My daughter's just phoned me and she's cut her breasts off. She's done it." She was mortified. But this is what's going on. This is the game that we're playing at the moment. And if we as divine masculines don't stand up and start creating structure for the feminine and creating a pathway and a foundation for our children and our children's children, in a few years' time, we're going to have robots running around this planet, and we as humans are going to be like cattle going into the cattle pens like sheep and cows. You know, they're going to be herding us in there.
Yeah, that ties in. I think it's the Lakota tribe here in the States, but they said we're going into a new age, part of that prophecy I mentioned earlier, and for them it's for this new age to work out perfectly, the masculine and the feminine have to work together, equal partnership. We've had too many times where it was just a male dominant or just a female dominant. But for us to move forward as a species, we have to have that alignment between the male and the female. And it's got to be like an equal partnership. It can't be the domination on one side. We have the divine masculine now, but in my opinion, it's gotten wounded, it's gotten injured, it's gotten corrupted. There's too much ego put into a lot of the masculine. There's nothing wrong with taking charge, but it's the way that it was done throughout like governments and stuff. It became corrupted. It's not the true divine masculine where it's that protector energy, that partner energy, but it's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. But it's the divine
Yeah,
masculine has been corrupted.
I totally hear you and I totally agree. Like something you said earlier on in the conversation about, we need to be able to fight if we have to fight. We need to be able to love if we have to love. Like a real true divine masculine should be able to kill you at the drop of a hat if it's to defend his family, his community, his tribe. But a real true divine masculine will never want to do that.
Yeah.
A real true divine masculine will want peace, will want calmness, will want protection, will want more life to all and less to none. Everybody in agreement and everybody working together. But the divine masculine never gets lost and thinks and feels, or at any level of his being, understands and gets complacent that everything is just fine. The real divine masculine is always going to stay prepared underneath like a warrior god, ready for every situation that unfolds on planet Earth. And so the man is fierce and ferocious, loving and kind, protective, and will support that divine feminine magnetic code. And the divine feminine is going to be able to rise then and be her true, formidable, powerful self, because she's got the protection from the divine masculine. And so the magnetic and the electrical energy, they come together. But this cannot happen externally until it happens internally. So humans have to do the inner work and get the electrical and magnetic, the feminine and the masculine internal balance, that inner twin flame union. Everybody's running around this planet wanting to find their twin flame, wanting to find their soulmate. But these relationships are tough relationships, because to go into an external relationship where they're your complete mirror, it's going to absolutely bend you sideways if you've not done your inner work.
Mm.
So going in and doing the inner work and getting up to speed and getting harmonized and coherent and whole first internally is going to enable you to move into a beautiful relationship externally. And that's where you're talking about the Lakota tribe is saying that the masculine and the feminine have to work together. I'm in full agreement with that, but the inside job's got to be done first.
Right.
Going and trying to do the outside job first, it ends in tears, because it's very intense. Now, it's not that it's never going to be intense when you do get into a relationship, because there's always going to be refinement, always going to be refinement and different levels. But ultimately, if you go in green with loads of shadows, it's going to be an absolute like train crash. So you're better off doing the inner work and then going out for the external.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's always about the inner work. It's always about that shadow work. If you don't look at that and address it, anything you do is just a band-aid or a quick fix as far as I'm concerned. It's not truly helping you move forward. It's not easy. It's not fun. I've had to address quite a few things during my own journey, and it's like, and then same like you mentioned, that spiral. I thought I was good with this, and then it comes back up later on, a couple years later, and it's like, oh, now I just got to get a little bit deeper and let me address this a little bit more. And hopefully, this might be the last time I have to deal with this for a little while. But I do want to, because just looking at the time, I guess, is there any last piece of advice you could give somebody who's maybe starting their journey, doesn't know where to start? I know we've given a lot of advice so far, but just, or any sort of message that you want people to know?
I would share this, that every single human being on planet Earth has something magical to offer humanity. And, we grow up as children bending and squeezing and trying to, rework our own design to fit into the model and the mold of society and what we think we should be and how we should show up, because we want to be loved and we want to be cared for and we want our parents to love us. But it's a program. And the only way that we're really going to have an amazing life on this planet is if we be real and authentic. And to be real and authentic, you've got to go in and do that shadow work. And then once you've done that shadow work, you can literally express yourself in whichever way you want. You can be raw, authentic, what I would call unfuckwithable, where you go out into the planet and you just do not care what anybody says or thinks. It doesn't matter. You get a bomb going off here, someone fires they shoot an AK-47 from over here, it just ricochets off your electromagnetic armor, because you're absolutely bulletproof, bomb-proof, RPG-proof, AK-47-proof. You're just rolling through life, and you know who you are. You know who you are at the core of your being. And when you know who you are at the core of your being, you become raw and authentic. And from that raw and authentic place, you start to express yourself. And you express yourself like a divine expression of the one, of God, whatever you want to call it, in a way that no one else does. Because we are all fractals of God, but at the same time, every single one of us has a unique expression. In this field, you might have daffodils. In that field, you might have tulips. Over there, you've got red roses, over there, blue roses. All these different flowers. All of them are beautiful. All of them smell a little bit different, but they all came from the Creator. And we as humans are walking around this planet, like sprouted out from the earth, like flowers. We all look a little bit different. We all smell a little bit different. We all speak a little bit different. We've all got something truly magical and alchemical and beautiful and unique to offer the planet. But the only way that you're going to do that, to be raw and authentic and express your magic, is to go and do the inner work, to become present, to become still, and to allow those gifts to rise to the surface, knowing that they're different from anything else on the planet. And so when you go out, you're not going to be understood fully. And people are going to blame you and judge you and say you're this and you're that and you're crazy and weird and strange. But that's all part of the magical puzzle. And that's why when you get to know yourself at a deep level, you literally become unshakable, unfuckwithable. And then you can roll through the planet, not giving a flying you know what about what anyone else says, you know?
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
just express yourself. Do the work and express yourself.
Nice. And with that, if you want to let people know where they can find you, I'll put all the links and stuff in the show notes. I know you got some events coming up as well. I don't know if you want to talk about any of those.
Yeah, starmagichealing.org is the website. Through there, you can get access to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're putting up content every single day, stuff that will help you, guide you. On the website, you can join Infinity. You can get free access, check it out, all of our meditations, light language transmissions, mystery school teachings. There's cosmic yoga, exercise, breath work, nutrition. We do live Q&As. We meet every Monday and Wednesday for DNA activations, meditations, breath work sessions. So there's loads of stuff going on in the community, and you get a community with thousands of souls that are figuring it out just like you, that are on this same mission. So go and check it out. We've got some amazing events coming up. We've got an online event in July called Infinite Wisdom, which is a 9-day event, supersonic meditation journey. We meet twice a day for 9 days. We've got a Deep in Space 10-day plant medicine retreat in August in Costa Rica. We've got an immersion retreat in October, 5 days in Mexico, which is going to be a deep, deep dive, really potent. We've got our facilitator training level 1 in London in September. We've got a group healing for 222 people in London in September. I'll be speaking in Bali at a summit over there in September too. We've got a tour of Peru in November. There's loads of stuff going on. Yeah, go to the website, check it out. If you've got any questions, you can book a call with one of our team and we'll talk you through whatever you want to talk through. You can also do our training, level 1, level 2, and level 3 online. So you can go and start it today, tomorrow if you want to. Yeah, there's loads of free stuff, paid stuff. Just go and check it out and reach out if you've got any questions.
Nice. I appreciate your time, man. I could actually keep going, but I want to respect the time too that we have. But yeah, thank you for being here, and I hope people check out your website or the training too. I find it. I'm still working through the first training. I'm on like day 4 right now, but every day it's just a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, and it amazes me to some degree of how simple it is at the same time, and it's not hard to truly remember the steps that need to be taken. It's just you're just diving in and almost playing, like I mentioned earlier. And I think it's a really good modality, and it's a really good tool for people to use, and they can use it on themselves. I tell people all the time, you can learn these things. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to start your own business, become this amazing healer. You could just work on yourself, work on your family, work on your friends. And sometimes that's enough. And then if you decide to branch out more, or people come to you, you can make that choice. But it really starts with yourself first, like we've been saying this whole episode.
Yeah, I think what I love about Star Magic is the simplicity. Like it's just versatile. If you're a sports coach, you can use it in sports performance for your team. You can move faster, think sharper, recover quicker. If in business, you can use it to expand your business, make more money, keep the staff more coherent and healthier. Parents can use it to help their children. Like there's not one part of life that you can't use it in. Like we've had people use it to fix their oven, start their car. Like you can use it everywhere. It's just a magical kind of technology for life.
Nice. Again, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, Jeremy, and thank you so much to you and your whole tribe and everyone that's watching this.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if something our guests shared resonated with you, connect out to them. That's what these stories are here for. And if you're looking for deeper healing or support, you can always find me at pnwshamanichealing.com. See you in the next episode.